Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about What If Season 2, Episode 2. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So in this universe, Yondu took Peter to his dad. Well, what's interesting too is that based on what the Watcher had said, he was saying that basically, it wasn't most, but I think he used the word specifically often. So a good chunk of times, I won't go as far as saying most of the time, but at least a good chunk of times, Yondu always keeps Peter. I mean, we also saw it in another reality where instead of getting Peter, he got T'Challa. He still kept T'Challa. So it seems like quite often he'll do that. But this happens to be one of the universes that he ended up giving Peter to his dad. Didn't have a change of heart. Gave him to his dad. And that decision led to, instead, like, he immediately, because it's like Peter's mom died like 6 months ago. So he's still a kid. He's raw. And we thought Earth might have been the first place he went to. But based on what we see later on, we find out, no, like, this is actually the most recent. Well, I mean, he's been causing devastation in other solar systems, but it's also because he was destroying the other realms. Earth is like the only realm left based on what Thor said, which that was quite a surprise to me when we saw Thor pop up. So, because obviously this is one of the storylines we saw the most of probably in the trailer. At least the first trailer, the one I saw, was but this storyline. But we have Hank being brought in by S.H.I.E.L.D. because, well, they need help. Obviously, Peggy and Howard, which it's nice to see that duo together again. But it ends up being a situation of they have to bring Hank back in, and he has obviously his issues with what happened. It's actually kind of interesting when you think about it, because let's not forget, well, I was about to say he went supervillain last season against S.H.I.E.L.D., but it's like, well, to be fair, it wasn't just his wife he lost. In that reality, he lost hope to S.H.I.E.L.D. as well, but this time he reluctantly joins back in because it's like, yeah, there's an alien invasion type of situation of more destruction than full-on invasion, but the point still remains. So we get Hank there, and he kind of has no choice but to bring Hope with him too, because he doesn't have anyone he can leave Hope with. And then he meets up with, I did not realize it was going to be, I didn't realize that was Bill, Lawrence Fishburne's character from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yeah, just Ant-Man and the Wasp. I almost forgot. Like, there was no subtitle for the second one, except for just adding in the Wasp. But I thought it was so interesting, too, bringing him in, and it's like, right, so they're not adversaries yet, because obviously he hasn't joined forces with Ghost yet. So he's still kind of on that good guy side of, I mean, we don't know how long ago. It probably still is a fairly fresh wound of losing Hope's mom. I mean, but granted, we know, but they don't know that she's in the quantum realm. I mean, but who knows? Maybe this is a situation. This could easily end up being a universe where maybe she was never in the quantum realm. You can assume she is, unless told otherwise, but it could just be a situation she not like just straight up did die in this universe. But either way, they also get T'Chaka, who has a good enough relationship, because he's like, yeah, like, my father had a good relationship. It's like, yeah, your father helped us win the war. Yeah, I heard he gave you some vibranium. It's like, yeah, we made it into a shield, but it got lost in the ice. But other than that, everything's going well. I'm just like, I mean, it's obvious where Tony gets his, like, mouth and just, like, his, like, sarcasm and his wit from his dad, even though he probably never, like, willingly admit that. But they also bring in Bucky, which obviously Peggy and Howard, this struck a chord with them, because in all these years they haven't seen him. But now it's like, wait, that looks like, but it's like, no, it might look like Bucky, but whoever the man we knew all those years ago is gone now, which is such a shame. And I do think it's so poetic that he is quiet mostly. I mean, it's like, right, all the forces have to join together, considering this is a worldwide issue. So they also get Wendy, which I was like, I wasn't sure who she was at first. I was like, but she's wearing that. She's like, oh, this is Kree technology. And they're like, and Hank is like, wait, what? I was like, wait, isn't that Annette Bening's character? Because I always associate the character with, like, being the thing that, slight spoilers, but big spoilers, but, you know, in the Marvels, that the thing that the computer or whatever, what was it, like Supreme Command or whatever that thing's called, that Carol destroys, like, in the Marvels, that kind of let her kind of a way, and kind of led to the whole situation on Hela, the planet, ending up the way it did. So that, I believe, because I remember what Annette Bening's character actually there with Carol during the explosion that led to her getting her powers and stuff. I don't know, because she doesn't have Carol's powers. She just has like Kree technology in a suit. So I don't quite. Maybe just the situation played out differently. Like I said, I brought this up last episode too. I have not seen Captain Marvel in like 4 years, so I don't remember a lot of those story beats and like where that. But I believe that's supposed to be the real like Annette Bening's character in the MCU. I think that's supposed to be the real version of her. Whereas that like the computer just disguised itself to look like that just to like play with Carol a little bit, just to, because it's like, right, this was someone that was significant to you or was there with you, so I'm trying to like some subconscious manifest state, like I'm manifesting myself like this to kind of like be able to control Carol a little bit, I think, if I remember correctly. Like I said, I could be misremembering that completely. Obviously, the first run-in with him did not go the way that they thought it would. It's interesting also to find out that Bill, it's like, oh, I thought the last time I saw you could only go 21 feet. And he's like, yeah, I've been able to maximize that now, which is funny because that was a playing off that conversation to Ant-Man and the Wasp when he found out, like, whoa, how big did you get? And Scott was like, 64. He's like, really? I've only ever been able to get to 21. So it's interesting to see like now like that's happening this far in advance. I thought that was kind of neat. I didn't realize he had a different Conan. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, Cassie's stature, so it makes sense that he'd have his own. His is, was it Gigantic? Was his name? I think I saw at the end like it's like Bill / Gigantic, but I didn't remember them. Not Gigantic, Goliath. I knew Gigantic didn't make sense. It's Goliath. I didn't remember him. It's been a couple years since I rewatched Ant-Man and the Wasp too, so maybe that did come up and I just don't remember. I just didn't remember them ever giving him a code name. I guess T'Chaka's suit doesn't work the same way as T'Challa's, because I mean I guess that was more Shuri who ended up making it that way, the absorbing kinetic energy, because he never utilized it. So I think it's just, yeah, it's a resilient suit, but it doesn't have the kinetic absorption thing, because I think that's purely a Shuri design. I mean, there's some very probably gifted people in Wakanda, but like Shuri's top class, so she's one of a kind in Wakanda. So I would assume that kind of plays. I guess it's a little indicative on that part of just like why that doesn't exist yet for T'Chaka's suit in particular. But as I kind of brought up before, Thor, that was kind of quite a surprise, because I saw the scene later on when they're all fighting together and Thor's there. I remember that scene from the trailer, but I didn't associate it with him being with this squad. So I thought that was so interesting. I was like, whoa, you're here on Earth a lot sooner. And obviously you never have to go through the tribulations and trials that you went through the first Thor movie. So you're still kind of the conceited guy, but you will grow up a little faster when it's like, right, all of Asgard is gone now because of Peter. And so it's like, right, we got to deal with this kid. And they lock him away, and we find out about the seed element all. And Thor wants to kill the kid later on, and so does Bucky, but everyone else has their reservations. I think it speaks volume. I think it's interesting that Bill was the first one to suggest, like, oh, we need to study him. No one else came from that perspective, and no one chastised him for it, but I guess it's like we kind of have to understand him. Because initially they assume, like, oh, because he came from the stars, he may look humanoid, but he's not human. But it was actually funny enough, Hope, which it didn't even cross my mind. I was like, right, they're around the same age. He's a kid having to deal with adults who are treating him this way. I mean, he is a kid at heart. He showed up at, wanted to go on these different rides, have like this kind of, I don't know if that's supposed to be a red panda, but obviously in my head I'm thinking like, oh, it's a little raccoonish, and I don't know if that's almost like a wink and nod to Rocket to some extent, but I would assume that's supposed to be like a red panda, but it might actually be a raccoon, that like toy he ended up getting. But yeah, he is a kid at heart. This is also a kid who, once again, it's only been like 6 months since his mom died. And I thought it was so beautiful when him and Hope talked. And it's like they bond over, yeah, we both lost our moms, and both of them having cassette and music being the tie to their parents. And Peter's like, right, I know what that's like. He's like, if I still had mine, I would be holding on to it dearly. And so later on when she tries to give it to him, he's like, no, yep, so your mom gave it to you. But she's like, no, my mom wouldn't want me to share it. And I was like, that's so sweet and beautiful. Especially because like his was taken from him by Ego and like morphed into something, because Ego wants to get rid of all, you don't need those human connections. Give in to what you really are. Become more me than human, even though you're half human. But she lets him go because she found out, like, wait, you're from Missouri? It's like, yeah. And he just wants to go home. I think that's so... It's such an interesting thing, especially, like, you know, having Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 now, where it's like Peter finally went home after everything. But it's like, that was years later. Here's him 6 months later as a kid coming home a lot fast. Because his mom was in a process of dying when he got snatched, but she wasn't dead yet when he left, I think. Because the way it's always depicted, it's like, she was like, take my hand, but he ran away because he was too scared. And I think she might have died while he was away, but then, like... But I think it happened simultaneously, like, while his mom is dying and he's running away, he got grabbed up by Yondu. I think that all kind of happened at once. So, he probably was not sure, but he probably... I don't know. It's just an interesting parallel of timing of, like, right, he went home at the end of Volume 3, and now he is home just as a kid, having to face that a lot sooner than he did as an adult. Which is sad. And obviously even Bucky trying to kill him, and it ended up being Howard talking him down, which I thought was very poetic, considering, like, a couple years from now, he's supposed to kill you, and kind of make it look like a car accident or whatever. But what I thought was, kill you and your wife, make it look like a car accident. But Howard's the one that kind of spoke to him, because it's like, right, you see that kid in front of you, like, you see him, that kid, like, there's a whole bright future ahead of him. You know, you are still the man I know, the man that Steve Rogers believed in. You know, the man he cared for and loved. You know, and that's always been a cornerstone of Bucky's situation. I mean, that even plays into the Falcon and the Winter Soldier of it all. The reason why he gave so much pushback to Sam giving away the shield, it's like, Sam, for him, it's like, Sam, Steve believed in you, and if he was wrong about you, then maybe he was wrong about me. And I just thought that was kind of almost bringing that to the surface, that, right, his buddy's belief in him, his buddy, and now... I just thought that was, like, poetically beautiful, that it still tugged at the human inside of him. It's like, right, he isn't full Winter Soldier. There's some spark of Bucky Barnes still in there. And I even love that line from Howard with, like, all these years later, Captain America still saving the day. I thought was beautiful. And also Hank's talk with Peter, because they were thinking, like, right, the only way to destroy the seed would be using energy similar to a celestial. Obviously, Ego won't do it, but if we could get Peter to do it, we can. But it's like, well, could we really get a kid turning against their parent? Which even, like, later on, Hank is talking to Wendy. He's like, oh, you just don't have kids. Or kids will easily fight their parents. But Hank had this beautiful conversation with Peter about, he's like, I know what it's like, that pain, you know, not feeling like home. He's like, ever since we lost Hope's mom, it hasn't felt like home. He's like, I haven't been quite right. He's like, I know the sadness, the anger, and the loneliness, but it's like, he's like, instead of, like, giving into those emotions, that's the time you turn to the people you love and you lean on them the most, you know. And that's something he's been harboring all of that, and instead of really being there and, like, holding on to Hope that much tighter, he's been free falling. But it's like, we don't have to submerge ourselves in that darkness. We don't have to submit to it. This is the time we lean on those closest to us. And I just thought that was beautiful. And that resonated so much with Peter. And him holding Peter, I was like, dude, are you going to end up adopting Peter? Which kind of seems like that is the case. I mean, he still has family out there. So, but it's like, yeah, kind of like an adopted family of sorts. But his family's still out there. He's kind of part of the squad later on. But yeah. When Peter wouldn't respond, Ego decided, I'm going to take a trip to Earth myself and handle this. And T'Challa, Bill, and Peggy, and Thor are trying to hold him off as he's summoning up, like, these armies to face them. And I love what it finally comes down to is they got Peter there in time, and he ends up absorbing the seed, getting his father's power. He's like, this way a part of you will always be there with me. Which I'm like, that's so interesting. Well, I'm about to say, because obviously Peter didn't lean into his celestial powers until, like, really 2. It's the reason why he survived the Infinity Stone in the first volume, but still, like, he doesn't really get to really utilize that until, like, volume 2. So he's probably going to actively use those powers a lot more in this continuity. But obviously the moment Ego dies, it's done, and Ego's going to end up being dead. But I love that whole sequence where it's like, right, he makes a mistake again and runs his mouth off about killing Peter's mom. It's like, yeah, I did it because you you needed to become who you need to become, and I needed to make sure that you weren't so held back by a human, because your mom would have stopped you from being who you are, and that's me. And he's just like, oh, I knew you were always, you're such a disappointment. You are human. And he's like, actually, old man, my mom says I'm a Star-Lord. I was like, that's actually really dope. Like signature line or finisher line I thought was pretty dope. And obviously when he immediately did his fingers like that, I was like, obviously because of the recent live action adaptation, I just immediately thought of like Yusuke's spirit gun. But obviously when you back away from it, reminds you of like a Kamehameha wave as well. I have to say it like that because like I have to say it fast, because obviously if you draw it out, I feel like I say it better like Kamehameha, but like when I'm just trying to say it fast as one word, it's like it comes off Kamehameha wave. That's the only way I can say it without stumbling on it. I can't say Kamehameha wave. It doesn't come off as like seamless. But yeah, especially because like some parts of it kind of remind me of like more specifically when, I mean, obviously he's a kid too, so it makes you even more so compare it to like the father-son Kamehameha wave, that Gohan uses to beat Cell. It just kind of gave me those vibes as well. But like I said, it's more spirit gun because of the fingers, but like the blast radius gave me father-son Kamehameha wave vibes too. But yeah, I was like, oh, is Ego dead? But I was like, no, only this version he let come here to Earth. The real him is still there. As long as the planet's still alive, he's alive. So he's still a threat out there to be dealt with. But this 88-year version of the Avengers will go out there and deal with him. Part of this squad and team. And it's a very interesting squad. It's so interesting that T'Chaka is going out there in space, considering T'Challa went out there in space and became Star-Lord in another universe. Even though Peter's Star-Lord, but it's still a kid version of him. And where does him and Hope remain in this whole situation? Like, I mean, they're not blood related, but will they grow up like siblings, which would be kind of cool. Because Peter went most of his life not having a sibling until Mantis, which makes you wonder, does Ego have Mantis at this point in time? Because Mantis is a little younger than Peter. I mean, I don't know if we ever really went into like how Mantis' species ages, so we don't know what her age is, I don't think, in comparison to Peter, but let's say roughly about the same age. So she, like I said, she might be a few years younger, so she might already exist on Ego's planet, but maybe she doesn't. I don't know. Or maybe this will be a situation where, like, they kind of grow up almost like siblings or friends. It might just be like, hey, we were kind of childhood friends and superhero stuff, and then we just might get together. So maybe him and Gamora never happened, and her and Scott never happened. But, just something like that. It could be an interesting pairing of Peter. I mean, because also there's no guarantee that Peter would be the same Peter that we came to know in the MCU with the Guardians movie. So just something to kind of think about. Because Peggy never had any. I still never saw the second season of Agent Carter, so I don't know if she's ever had any space adventure. So this might be her first time out there. Same thing for Howard. I don't know, just kind of interesting, and obviously like Thor still being part of the main. I mean, hell, even last season he still ended up being part of the main Guardians of the not Guardians. Yeah, Guardians of the Multiverse last season as well. A version of that character. So. But also, yeah, Bucky's out there. He's not with them. But, Howard's not too concerned because, is that right? That Winter Soldier may still be out there. But wherever he goes, Bucky Barnes is going to be there with him, too. So I thought that was kind of dope. Makes you wonder what the galaxy is going to look like with these Avengers kind of going out there. I wonder, would they end up kind of being some... I mean, makes you almost wonder, would S.W.O.R.D. get started sooner if Peggy's out there in space, her and Howard? I don't know, just obviously once again it's just the ramifications of like the ripple effect is always just an interesting thing of like what this could mean for the MCU of this particular universe and timeline and stuff about these changes, what they can mean in a grand scheme of things. It's interesting because T'Chaka, like Wakanda created space technology a lot obviously they advanced a lot quickly for the sake of trying to find T'Challa out there in space. So especially if T'Chaka's going into space and just for an adventure of going, I mean, they probably work a lot closely with S.H.I.E.L.D. and that'd probably lead to like Wakandan advancements even further. Because I don't know if at this point S.H.I.E.L.D. has space travel yet, so it probably would be a collaborative effort to probably make it happen. So just stuff like that's just kind of interesting. I also love that Hope and Peter got gifted got gifted Goose, but it's like, no, I prefer a dog, which Hope was like, don't turn down a free cat. So they've also got Goose on the squad too, which they haven't really gotten to utilize to see that. Wendy probably knows about Goose's circumstances, but just hasn't broken the news to everyone else, so it's going to be quite shocking when that everyone's like, wait, what the hell is up with that cat? Sadly we didn't get to see that, but it's just kind of a nice little added thing there near the end. So either way, I'm very excited to ultimately see what the next episode, tomorrow's episode, has in store for us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.